Okay. Hi, everybody. So today we have a special guest, Olya. She and I met through, let's see, Nicole Clark, right? And then you've been coming to the free spiritual group call that I've been holding every month. And she gracefully accepted an invitation from me to interview her about her faith transition from the Mormon church. And then we'll move into her spiritual awakening that happened, right? Because you kind of have to find your own truth after leaving an organized religion. So without further ado, let's start the question. So can you give a little bit of background about your history with the church and how that just came to be and everything?
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm a Russian woman, and I grew up under communism,
Mm-hmm.
and I I got to witness firsthand when that system, with its rigidity and control, fell apart and kind of ruptured in my country like an infected appendix. And finding myself in that space where people were unsure what to believe, having lost one set of beliefs and values. I was a seeker for truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I was devouring books on religion, philosophy, of course, Russian literature, which is very infused with all things spirituality. It was an extreme blessing in my life at the time, but I wasn't finding any of the answers I was looking for. And I was approached by two sister missionaries, and I was 19 at the time, and I joined the LDS Church. And that resonated with me as a greater light than what was available immediately around me. That felt like a truth, and I embraced it. My family of origin rejected me for it, and that was really hard and difficult and poignant. I felt a very deep rift that took me a very long time to heal, nearly 2 decades to heal. I moved to the US. I moved to Utah and started going to school and served an LDS mission, did all the things, got married in the temple, and had a very beautiful and rich marriage, and lots of experiences and adventures along the way, and had 5 beautiful sons. Wow. That are age 5 through 18. I have one in kindergarten and one in high school this year, so the full spectrum. And I was very content within the LDS religion for nearly 20 years. And then things started to shift for me, I would say around 2019, 2020. And like I say, I was and am a seeker of truth, and it's very ironic for me to look back and realize that what started the process for me was not looking outside of the LDS Church, but looking within. Yeah. A friend of mine and I had a challenge that we challenged each other to read all of President Nelson's talks. And in the process of doing that, I became aware of concepts and notions that were not talked about in Sunday school or the pulpit. Things like the Church of the Firstborn. That was the big one. What that might be, and that snowballed into an awareness of greater light and greater understanding, deeper understanding that is right here. A lot of it was right there, right in front of us in the scriptures and in plain sight, as it were. So that was the beginning. Very quickly, I realized that the kingdom of God, as it were, and the LDS Church are not the same thing. And the essence of the teachings of Christ, what he tried to introduce into the world when he was here, and what the church is currently teaching, there's a huge discrepancy. You can compare and contrast the two practically, and you can go down so many notions and concepts that Christ either never talked about or had a whole different interpretation of.
Yes.
So that was the beginning for me. And of course, all of that deepened and spread, and things like the divine feminine. What is that? What could that be? And it's very easy within the paradigm of the LDS thinking and theology to be trapped in the notion that God is an exalted man.
Right.
And it perpetuates this perception of patriarchy.
Right.
And this complete imbalance of the feminine and the masculine, and kind of locks you into the as-isness. This is the way things are on the universal level, according to that theology.
Yeah.
So that was my time to deconstruct that. And go within and find answers, start finding answers from within. That's another thing the LDS Church teaches not to do,
right,
very effectively, is not to trust our own knowing, our own guidance, our own insight into anything and everything. That can be personal life, that can be I don't know, that can be the world, the view of the universe and world as a whole, the whole gamut. So yeah, it's been a journey of remembrance, a remembrance of who I am and of who God is. And despite my seeming uniqueness of cultural background, my story is really a story of many a woman.
Yeah.
And of anyone that is coming to that awareness of who they are. And again, both the church and the world teaches us to understand our identity and purpose within the framework of external relationships, right? We like to keep ourselves within little labels. I am a mother. I am
Yes.
I am a doctor, a teacher, a whoever. But when you take all of those outer layers and shells off, when you get down to the bottom of things, who are we really? And what is the essence of that? What is outside of all these roles we take on throughout our lives, right? We go from being a daughter to mother to grandmother, but in the midst of that, there's this essence, this I amness that doesn't change.
Yes.
And what is the purpose of this I amness to be, to traverse all these different roles? And what are we supposed to, how are we supposed to navigate that? What are we supposed to glean through that and make the most of? And the church is really good about pointing out the, you know, their elite status in the world, quote unquote, when it comes to knowing more. But really, on a doctrinal, just a purely intellectual level, the church provides a grain of sand
Yeah.
when it comes to knowing things in this universe, which is vast, and it is mind-blowing. And we stand on this little soapbox and beat ourselves on the chest for having more, knowing more, and are completely unaware of just how much more there is to know. We talk about, you know, celestial, telestial, and terrestrial, and and no one has considered extraterrestrial.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, and multidimensional to aspects to ourselves. Yes, yeah.
Exactly.
It's all based on just this life, and this life is a test and everything, when it's so much more than that. And how unforgiving and how unfair that divides certain people with different lives, you know, as we view their life and we're like, well, how come they had a pretty easy road and this person is in poverty and trauma and abused? And it's just like, it doesn't, you know, the answer for me was,
picture, right?
Yeah, it was like, well, the Lord knows what you can handle, you know, it was always the answer. And that did not fly with me. It still felt unfair. And so when you think of multidimensional, right, it's like, oh, wait, maybe I get another life to try this out. I don't just get one, you know, you know, and then that judgmental aspect of it too is so off the mark, right? So
absolutely. You know, I think it's ironic. I think it was James Faust that talked about understanding the plan of salvation and how he compared it to a 3-act play. How difficult it is for anyone to grasp the full picture. And yes, it is difficult to grasp the full picture, except there is like a multi-act play we're all in, and not having that vision or that insight. Of course, anything having to do with multiple probations or reincarnation is not touched with a 6 hole. It's like, forget it. This heresy on steroids. And it was a very poignant experience for me exiting the church, because I have been so invested in it. Right? There's been so much sacrifice. And again, generally speaking, when somebody leaves the church, the standard is to just put a scarlet letter on them as someone that is antagonistic. And for me, it was a mourning. It was I felt like my whole heart was ripped out of me. This is something I believed in and knew to be the absolute truth. So to give that up was to give up part of me. It was literally getting rid of, unlayering layers of who I have been all these years.
Yeah.
So, and I'm grateful for the experience I've had in the LDS church, and I don't think less of people that are LDS.
Yes, exactly. That's kind of what I wanted to do with bringing these faith transition interviews on my channel is I wanted to find people that had one, a spiritual awakening and growth from that, embrace what they loved about the church, right? And how it played in, their development and everything. Maybe even, like you said, go through this grieving process of leaving the community and all of that and not most importantly harboring the anger and the hate and the festering. Now I did go through that phase and I'm sure it's very natural to go through that phase, but not necessarily staying in that phase, seeing how it was like all put together and then being at peace with people who still resonate with the church, right? and
Right.
and being at peace with that was hard too, for like I'm sure with you, with various members of your family, various members of mine, and allowing them to have that freedom, right, to choose. That's what this whole experiment is about, right? Is the free will and the choosing while we're here. And so I wanted to move more into those kinds of interviews that weren't so like ex-Mormon and anger and exposing. And there's plenty of that out there. But what women, especially, I will say, and men too, but mostly women who are going through a faith transition, who may still go to church, right? But are feeling these ways inside, they do not have somebody to talk to, right? They do not have an example of a woman in their lives, maybe that has successfully been able to spiritually develop themselves outside of the church, right? These are the things people need to see. And this is why I was so drawn to you and wanting to interview, is because I felt that peace that you had made, that growth, right? And it's so important for people to see that this is happening, this is existing, and you can find happiness and peace outside of, the church community, the church culture, and even the religious aspect of it. What you're, it's like you get freedom to explore your truth, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's, our souls are here to expand. And that's what we're here for, right? You put something in a box, it dies.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But
Yeah.
when people are buried, they're put in a box.
Yeah.
That's the appropriate place for them, right?
That is so right on. That is so right on. And it does. It feels confining. It feels like I remember saying like it felt like a shoe that didn't fit anymore. And I was trying to stuff my foot in it and it was just like, no. And you feel like this, like you want to stand up in the middle of sacrament meeting and be like, that's not right. Or stand up in Relief Society and say, but what about all of this? And it's and pretty soon, it's you realize you're growing out of it.
Right. Yes, it's like a clothes that no longer fit, for sure.
So something also very um interesting with you is, and I don't know how you do it, bless your heart, because you're amazing. You reside in Utah, correct? Still?
Yes.
And that's to be close to your children, which is amazing. But can you talk a little bit more about the challenges of being in Utah and being like, you know, leaving, just that whole aspect of church culture surrounding you, but you're not part of it. And how do you deal?
Oh, it is challenging. Of course, for me, I, there are plenty of people in Utah that are not LDS. But that said, it is heavily Mormon populated. And most things, when it comes to social structures, evolve around the church. And I feel like as a soul, I have never felt um, less alone. You know, I'm in a very independent, sovereign place, and it's been wonderful. And I do feel guided and supported on steroids. But as a human being, I am extremely isolated. You know, I've lived in Utah on and off for 20 years. This is where I've raised my children. I've made friends, and the state of Utah, there are two LDS people I have regular interaction with. One is my ex-husband, and the other one is his wife. So it is, it does make me feel very vulnerable, just on a human level. I don't have a Relief Society president or a visiting teacher I can call up and say, I need to go to the emergency room, or anything like that. So, and since I don't have extensive interaction with the LDS crowd, I don't feel, I don't always feel the judgment, but I have felt perceived as broken at times. You know, it's like someone that has learned to ride a unicycle shows up and everybody else is riding regular bicycles.
That's a good way of putting it. Oh my goodness.
So I was like, what's wrong with you? It's gonna take a lot more to balance the thing. Where's the other wheel?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like literally. Yeah.
Just this feeling of being judged, of being somehow less than, just different, right? Who is this crazy person? And why would they choose that over this? And why would they let go of the stability and the structure and the system and the community? Why would they give all of that up? For what? For a unicycle? For sovereignty, for being able to
for sovereignty.
Make your own decisions, for being able to have more light and more understanding, more insight, more magic and joy in life.
Yeah, exactly.
Do that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And have you been able to find any kind of like local support or anything in terms of because I'm sure there's probably like ex-Mormon groups and things like that. But you probably haven't, I don't know, I'm just kind of guesstimating like if there's probably a lot of anger in those groups. And so it'd probably be hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly the reason I have steered away from the ex-Mormon populations. I have a few like-minded friends just in Utah. They're not in my immediate proximity, but
I'm glad to hear that. I am so
yeah.
I'm glad that, it's like you hang on to those for dear life, right?
You do. And we're about an hour away from each other or 3 hours away, but it's still, they're still present in my life, and that's what matters. And of course, social networks are a huge blessing and support. But when I feel like we're all, for the most part, we're all isolated, and we're lifting wherever we stand and shining and holding the light.
Exactly.
We're needed, and sometimes it's lonely and tiring and it doesn't make any sense. But it seems to be the program plan.
Yeah, exactly why I decided I'm creating this group call, because I'm like, too many of us feel this way. And we all just need to get on a call together and share everything, just everything, and feel comfortable to do that. So
yeah, I'm glad you did. It's a huge to create a virtual community if we can have a physical
that's my hope. Yeah, that's my hope, is to keep this going and get more women or men on here talking about their experience. So tell me a little bit more about like the interaction with your children. Are they still in the church?
They are.
And
My
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
my ex-husband has full custody of the children, and they are in the church, and you know, he gets to he has full say and control in that area. And sometimes it's extremely triggering, like when my at the time 3-year-old needed to be vaccinated, which, you know, the whole vaccine thing is its own can of worms I'm not going to open right now. But, you know, for me personally, I did not feel like, and still don't feel like, it's the right thing. And so to watch my babies go through that was very triggering. It was very poignant. But I've you know, I feel like this is what my children need right now, is to be in the church. And some of them have um different proclivities, let's just put it like that. Some I know will stay for a time at least. I know one won't stay very long. So it's interesting. But, you know, you just have to realize that none of us are in control of another person's journey.
Right.
Holding that space and allowing them to experience whatever they're here to experience. My oldest son is getting ready to go on a mission, and I'm supporting him as long as that is what he's choosing, you know, as long as nobody's twisting his arm to go that direction. My mission was a great blessing to me, and you know, I don't, like I say, I'm not here to control nothing.
Right. And it's their journey, finding their truth and that sort of thing, and allowing that space. And it's so beautiful that you've come to that knowing. And as I've shared with you before, like, they know that no matter what, church or no church, that you love and support them. And that's a beautiful thing. Whereas if they had a parent that was conditioned to only love and accept if that child were to do all of the Mormon steps, you know, serve a mission, get married in the temple, all those kinds of things. And if they stepped outside of that, that love would be conditional. And
Right.
and so you obviously, you know, that's not you. You're the very opposite, and you have the spiritual maturity to still be like, okay, they're involved in the church, and you know, you have to be okay with that on some level, because as you said, you cannot control, and they have to be allowed to make those decisions for themselves, and kind of they need to see for themselves the church culture, or what it's like going out on a mission and seeing the different belief systems, which blows my mind, actually, that the church still requires people to pay for their own missions. That just absolutely and now they're requiring members to come clean the chapels on the weekends. Like, they can't afford their own janitors. Like, I don't like, I'm so glad that wasn't in existence when I was going to church at the time, you know, because that's even more sacrifice of time, you know. There's so much time, and they want to nook and cranny every aspect of your life through the week, you know, the culture and just how it is. And it's, again, so you don't stray, you don't think, and have the freedom of you know, execution.
Right. There is so much doing,
Yes.
right? Your list of things to do, so you don't have time to sit still and be still enough for long enough to have time to think outside the box at all.
Yes, exactly. It's very all-encompassing, for sure. So yeah, when you leave for that, though, it just allows for so much space. And so I want to talk a little bit more about when you do allow that space, how when you went through your spiritual awakening and everything, what were some esoteric experiences? Like, you suddenly knew like your intuition and like maybe you had a experience with your guides, or what kind of things did you start experiencing?
Well, I well, one symptom of my awakening was that I needed to be in nature at all times. Which, when you're living in the middle of um, the suburbs, it's not always easy. But that was one. Then one pull. I had an influx of intelligence. That
Mhm.
was my thing, and then um, the other obvious symptom for me was a massive enhancement of my writing gifts. And,
Mm.
I've always been a good writer. I've always been good with words, even though English is my second language. But, when you're mothering 5 children, you're not exactly sitting down and writing
Yeah.
anything. So after 20 years of not writing nearly anything, I felt an outpouring of like these downloads that were coming, that were compelling me to write them out. And
Wow.
oftentimes I would look at it and be clueless as to where this came from or who wrote
Right?
that. So in a way,
Yeah.
like a trance channel. I'm not,
Yeah.
but it's a very similar experience where you feel like something is coming through you. And I have been experiencing that for ever since. So
That's beautiful. I love that. So you definitely felt like you were moving in the right direction. What were signs and signals that you could tell, like when you left the church behind, that it was right?
I felt so incredibly empowered from within, even though on the outside it didn't look like I had any reason to.
Mhm.
I felt extremely liberated, and yeah, it felt peaceful. It felt enriching to be out.
Mhm.
Just like taking you off the shoes that have been
Mhm.
pinching your toes for so long. But also I found in a place where I had more room to identify who I am
Mhm.
and who God is and what I'm supposed to do next in life. um, and of course, that in and of itself has become such an amazing, challenging, and beautiful experience that there's just no questioning or no denying for me. I couldn't have come up with it, and I couldn't have orchestrated or created that. But it has been because there was the room within me. It became created through me,
Mhm.
because that's how God creates, is through us
Mhm.
when we allow for it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I think what's conflicting for a lot of people, um, and I'm speaking from like my personal family members, is they see if they do feel the spirit while they're sitting in church, if they do get answers to prayers, if they do respond to a priesthood blessing, if they are, these are examples to them of why the church is true to them. But what I want to bring up, and I'm curious to hear more about what you say on it too, is that all of those things exist without church. So that's why absolutely prayer is 100%, like, you know, um, when someone puts hands on you, it can be a woman too, and administers a blessing or a healing and a praying, that exists outside of church. Feeling the spirit, when you're feeling like you're sitting in a quiet church and you're meditating, everybody's going to be feeling good when they do that, usually. So those types of things that people are like, well, that's why the church is true. I want them to be able to see that, when you reflect back of your times in the church, there were moments that were true for you. And that's because those certain things that we were doing exist no matter what religion, you can be in.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, within the church, you get so much of this elitism, right? We're elevated, we're somehow better, because we know better, we have more truth, more knowledge, and
We're the number one only true religion.
right.
Right.
Just like the Jews, right? During the time of the Savior, where the chosen people, and this perception of chosenness really limits people in just the awareness of how their whole life can be a spiritual experience. And you don't need to be at church, and you don't need to be within a temple.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, really at all of my life, and even within, while I was in the church, I realized that some of my most profound spiritual experiences did not happen while in sacrament meeting or at the temple.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, that there's been promptings depending on whatever is going on and my own readiness and perceptiveness from within. But my most profound experiences have happened in dreams, in my bedroom, or when I'm, put everyone to bed and I'm just having a space and time of stillness and alignment.
Yeah.
So that's when we get some of the more precious nuggets that come like dew from heaven.
Exactly. And it's been nice to be able to reflect back on what worked, and it's like you can pick and choose, certain things about what you grew up, or is your experience with 20 years in the church and stuff. You can like pick and choose how it shaped and formed you and kind of leave the rest. Right? Like that doesn't apply anymore. That doesn't resonate. And the beautiful thing about being spiritually led by your own self, your higher self, and your relationship with the higher, creator, God, whatever, is that you can keep doing that with anything and everything. You can drop anything that doesn't resonate and explore something that's like, you know what, I kind of want to move into, what are these crystals about, or what is Reiki about, or it opens your mind to be so diverse, and then your ability to be able to connect with people all over the globe grows.
Absolutely.
Because you're open and you're not judgmental, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's almost, it's just mind-boggling how much opens up. How many different modalities, how much there is to learn, grasp, understand. I mean, literally, you could spend all day just doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely, so there was definitely like stages, of coming to this maturity, and then of leaving the church. So I really don't want to discourage anybody who is feeling the anger part right now, like that. I went through that. Did you go through an anger part?
I did. I guess it wasn't an anger part per se. It was more of a, I just felt aghast as I was finding out the discrepancy between what truth is and what the church says truth is, and finding out things about the church, what it is doing. Sometimes I felt like I walked outside and opened a door and it was an outhouse, and it was not what I expected. I wasn't looking for dirt. I was just
Right.
opening doors. And the stench and the hypocrisy were just mind-blowing. And so yeah, for a long time I tried to make some of these facts known.
Mhm.
And that, it's still up on my blog and in my book, and anyone can learn about it if they want to.
Oh, yes.
It's a
What's
very
your
rude awakening. It was a rude awakening. It was a slap on the
Yeah.
face.
Yeah.
So
What's
what
the
was that?
title of your book?
My book is called Coming to a Place of Oneness.
Oh, I love that. And I will make sure to put that in the description box below so that people can find your book and your blog.
Sure,
So
yeah.
that just sounds beautiful. And it's all about your spiritual journey.
Yes, it's all about some of these notions, some of these doctrinal principles that the church either doesn't talk about or doesn't has a very subjective take and interpretation on. So I'm just providing different perspectives and expanding some of those
Oh, I love that.
angles of looking at things. Like I said, the divine feminine, or what could be the nature of the nature of God, or what is God's law look like, and how does it apply, in what realm, in what sphere, and
I love that.
those,
That's wonderful. It's really like what if, you know?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that you explore that and everything. So is there any other kind of guidance that you would give to somebody who may be in your position, or, wherever they are on the spectrum of their faith transition? What kind of guidance do you think you would give them?
Trust yourself.
Mm,
Trust yourself and believe in yourself,
mm,
because the universe, God, already does.
mm.
And there's so much love and joy to be had outside of all structures, outside of all things external.
Mhm.
And I would advise not to rush through the process, and allow for every phase, be it grieving or anger or whatever, just like with any other emotional trauma. So yeah, just trust yourself and be discerning, because when people are leaving a structure, it can be they put themselves in a very vulnerable position, right? You become open to anything and everything, and you have to just really discern
Discern. Yeah.
what it is you're opening yourself to.
Right. I remember that phase. It was like,
Right.
this, that, what do I believe? Yeah. It
Yeah,
was,
because there is a full spectrum. Once you open that door, you have to be stable enough and level-headed enough to navigate through that um, without much collateral damage or
yeah.
anything else. And people they will take advantage, just like within the church, people are controlling you and taking
Yep.
advantage of you on every level. People outside the church will do the same if
Yes.
they
Yeah.
tapped into your vulnerability. So you and connect
Mhm.
with like-minded people, because having that support network is essential. And feeling nobody is alone, right?
Mhm.
Nobody is alone in the universe. We're all one, we're all connected, we're all God, but everybody is alone. Because all of our journeys are so custom made, and
Right.
so personally tailored. So while you're in that place of aloneness, that is still crucial to connect with like-minded people, because we are not only souls, but we're also humans.
Mm-hmm. And it's so good to see the progression and have examples of that, and seeing somebody who's made it and still okay, and they're thriving outside of the church. I think that's, it's just not known or seen, and I want to put it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, it is not known or seen, but it is present, and it is
100%.
accelerating,
Yes,
because people are tired of wearing shoes that no longer fit.
exactly, and I am seeing that shift as well. And there's so many things that I do miss, and I keep thinking, if the church just made all of these changes and then kept this, like, I would go. You know what I mean? Because there's certain things that I do miss. It's I mean, it's really silly, like Relief Society craft night, or I love the concept of visiting teaching. I think that's a great idea to have women come check on you, but not for reasons of are you going to church or not, but for like, hey, how are you? Do you need anything?
Right.
Like, I feel like there's these fundamental concepts that are like good, but then there's this whole twist they put on things, that just make it unbearable. But yeah, I definitely do miss certain things. And I think that that's normal. And I've been able to find creative ways, though, to recreate them or bring them back into my life, whether it be music or singing or a prayer or whatnot. So you find ways, right? You find ways to, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I'm noticing is that as people go through this awakening, all of their creativity, whatever gift they might have, open up, and that becomes a form of healing for them, whether
Yeah.
it's jewelry making or art or singing or you name it. And the universe is a smart place. It'll compensate for whatever
It
in
will.
in ways that we haven't thought of, because we've been trained to think in a certain way. But there is definitely life outside the box.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It reminds me of what's that show? I don't know if you've seen it, but it's called Silo. Like, people are afraid to go outside because they are shown that they will die or something like that. It's the same kind of concept of like, oh, you go outside and it's actually really green and beautiful, So it takes a lot of courage, and it feels risky, obviously, but it's like you can't stop it from happening once it starts, because your soul just craves it, your freedom, your growth. Like, it's like you can't stop the growth.
Absolutely.
And when you can get
Like
out of your
stopping
own mind.
gravity.
What's that?
Like stopping gravity. You can't stop
Yeah.
it, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And so no matter what, there are going to be changes. And these next generations that have coming in, they just don't put up with this. I forget just the what's the word I'm looking for? The like a leader over you telling you have to do these things. They're just not putting up with that kind of crap anymore. Um, you know, they really aren't. They want the freedom.
My commitment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, this has been such an eye-opening and validating, experience and interview with you. It's such a beautiful journey that you've made, and you're so courageous. And I really do thank you for sharing this and allowing others to see your growth and your, in a way, your sacrifice, and the certain sacrifices you've made in order to be a part of your children's life, and to still be their mother and offer that love and that overwhelming, just open arms, unconditional love that you still, you know, bring them and the sacrifices that you live where you live, right? And the challenges that brings, and the, you know, all of that. So there's a lot of courage in that. And um, again, I hope we can grow this community and that we can feel even more of a connection. It's already happening, so I know it's going to be well on its way. And you're going to get so many people thanking you for being who you are and having the courage for doing what you did. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And I hope that, like you said, I hope that people reach out to you, and people certainly will come out to reach out to me.
Yeah.
As this expands and grows, because it is challenging and it does take a lot of courage for a woman to stand up to the world of men and still find a way to thrive.
Yes, a heavy hand on the divine feminine is needed. Absolutely. So thank you so much. And if there are those that are interested in joining the free group monthly call, I usually do it like on a Friday night around 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Just go to my website, starseedangelguide.com, and under the contact form, just leave your email, your name, and I will add you to the group Zoom list and email you the link, and you can join us. You know, it's really good. We've made a lot of connections, and it's really brought some people who were extremely feeling like isolated really bad. It's really helped them, I can tell. And it's helped me too. So great. So yes. And again, I'll leave that information below about your book and your blog. And again, thank you, Olya. It's been such a pleasure. And yeah. All right.
Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.